The exams made me want to burn the math building down. And don't even get me started on the online labs. And even then, I barely understood the concepts. What is up, people of the internet? My name is Avery, and I have just finished my first year of UBC Engineering. As you can probably tell by the last time I uploaded, I've been gone for quite a while. And all I have to say is that 8 midterms and 6 finals can really do a lot to you. But I can finally say now that I'm done first year, and I can now look back on the absolute hell that I experienced in the form of a tier list. This video is going to be pretty simple. I took all 13 courses in first year engineering, and I'm going to rank each of them in a tier list based on how much I enjoyed each of them, from S tier, which is the best, to F tier, which is the worst. Timestamps will be in the description below if you want to jump around to a specific area or a specific course and see my thoughts about them. Also, I want to mention that I was not in the pre-biomedical program, so I didn't take any of the BMeg or the chem courses that are in science. Alright, it looks like we're going in alphabetical order here, so first up is APSC 100, which is taken in semester 1 and is an introduction to the engineering profession through some group projects. The projects that we worked on included building a chair completely out of cardboard, proposing the next bike lane to be built in the city of Vancouver, and prototyping an adaptive device for a client with limited arm mobility. Each of these projects are split into their own modules, and you also learn things like how to apply the engineering design process, how to present and share your designs effectively and in different forms, and you'll be introduced to common engineering practices. So, what I've noticed from APSC 100 and APSC 101 for that matter is that your experience heavily depends on your assigned group members, because a good group will make your life so much easier, but a bad group can really bring you down. Luckily for me, in APSC 100, I was put in an amazing group and we all bonded together very well, so I very well may be biased. And regarding the assignments and the grading, I will go into more detail into these in future videos, but the summary is that your projects do count for a significant portion of your grade. And the exams, although quite questionable and ambiguous at times, you really shouldn't be worried about them too much. Again, I'm going to make separate videos in the future going into more detail about each of these courses. But overall, I think that APSC 100 deserves, a very respectable A tier. The projects were pretty fun, my group G5 was amazing, so I don't really have much else to say. Next up is APSC 101, which is taken in semester 2 and is a continuation of what you've learned in APSC 100 with more complex projects and concepts. The projects that we worked on this semester included a fully autonomous claw made of sheet metal and an Arduino, proposing a water treatment solution for a small island community, and modeling a rainwater harvesting system using spreadsheets. APSC 101 definitely doesn't hold your hand as much as APSC 100, which means that there's a lot less rigidity in terms of what you're actually supposed to be doing at any given time. Unfortunately, I found that the pacing of the course in each module went way too slow in the beginning stages, and then basically when there was like a week left, they were like, okay, you have 2/3 of the project left, go do it. So you really do need to be diligent with your time to avoid doing everything at the last minute. Also, I really just didn't like doing the last project where we designed the rainwater harvesting system using spreadsheets. It may be a personal thing because I just really don't like spreadsheets, or maybe because we had no idea what we were supposed to be doing most of the time. However, I got very lucky again with my group H1, and we got to the point where we were feeling a bit too comfortable around each other with some of the things that we said during group meetings. So overall, I'd give APSC 101 maybe like a B tier. Next, we have APSC 160, which is an introductory coding course in C. Now, you see, I'm kind of torn about where to put this course, because I could easily put it in either S tier or D tier, depending on which half of the course that I'm talking about. Now, what do I mean by this? So, APSC 160 is somewhat split into two halves. The first half, where you learn about all the fundamentals of coding in C, including like variables, functions, arrays, etc. And the second half, where you use all of that knowledge from the first half to code Arduino simulations in Tinkercad. The first half was taught by the legendary Syed Hosseini, and it was actually somewhat enjoyable to go to lectures and complete the assignments. But the second half was quite the opposite. It was taught by a different professor who basically didn't teach us at all, and I lost all motivation to go to lectures and do the practice simulations basically up until the final exam. That being said, you don't really need to have prior coding experience in order to get a pretty high grade in this course. So, all things considered, I think I'll put APSC 160 into B tier probably. It's good, but it probably would have been a lot better if Syed taught the whole way through. Next we have CHEM 154, and oh boy, prepare yourselves for a lot of ranting. CHEM 154 holds a special place in my heart because it was the first course that I actually failed a midterm in. For those wondering, the class average for that midterm was 52%, and I was 0.25 points below a passing grade. If you're like me, you probably left high school with a good impression of high school chemistry. Well, you're in for a treat because CHEM 154 will completely get rid of that for you. I couldn't understand anything in my prof's lecture section, and I ended up going to another prof's lecture just so I could somewhat understand the concepts. And even then, I barely understood the concepts. The homework was barely like the exams, and don't even get me started on the online labs, which were so stupid in my opinion. Also, thank God for the organic chemistry tutor on YouTube, otherwise I probably would have failed the course. I left this course absolutely despising chemistry, so it's a no-brainer that CHEM 154 is going into F tier. Next we have my elective ECON 101, which was an introduction to microeconomics. All engineering students need to complete at least 2 electives from the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and I chose Econ because I was always fascinated with it in high school, but I just never had the space to take it. But what I realized with choosing your elective is that you should choose something that is A, somewhat easy, and B, will be an average booster for you. Econ 101 was fun for 2 reasons. One, I had Professor Gateman, or Prof G, and he actually made the lecture somewhat entertaining. And 2, the course concepts can actually be applied to real-world applications even in engineering. In Prof G's section, we never had any homework other than some weekly quizzes, and the exams always got scaled up because everyone did so bad. I got one of my highest marks from this class, which is kind of odd considering I barely studied. I barely studied for this class, and I always saw a ton of solder kids with only 4 courses studying like crazy for this course and getting insanely low marks. Maybe engineers are just better. All jokes aside, this course was one of my favorite courses this year, and I think it earns its rightful spot in S tier. Now we're at the bread and butter of engineering, math and physics. First up is Math 100, which is an intro to differential calculus. Now you see, the main thing that I didn't like about Math 100 and Math 101 for that matter was how the course is designed, because I think it's really poorly designed in my opinion. First of all, why are we learning about multivariable calculus and partial derivatives in first year? Isn't that supposed to be like second year math? I think that's in Math 253. Also, why was it on the final exam? Why? Second, instead of midterms, we had to do these written assignments that were so stupid in my opinion, and I hated them. The concepts in the written assignments were way more advanced than what was covered in the lecture content, and we had to freaking type up our assignments with all the weird math symbols, and the markers were so hard on us for our formatting and our grammar. If our equation signs weren't perfectly aligned, or if we didn't have a period at the end of an equation, that would mean a few marks off. I would have honestly rather have had 2 midterms than have to do these written assignments. The only saving graces for Math 100 for me were that I took Calculus 12 in high school and my lecture prof was pretty good. Otherwise, this course would have probably been an F tier and I probably would have failed. But I'll give it a D tier because it could have been a lot worse. Next is Math 101, and it has the same course structure as Math 100, but just with integral calculus this time. And I thought I liked doing integration in high school, but I was clearly wrong after doing Math 101. Let's start with the positives. My prof for this course was absolutely amazing, and he actually cared and listened to us. Also, I wasn't as salty about the stupid ass written assignments because I had already experienced them in Math 100, but nevertheless, I still thought they were really dumb. And we got a formula sheet for the final exam, which was probably the best thing that ever came out of the math department. Now for the negatives. The web work homework this semester was so much harder compared to Math 100, and I would often find myself spending 5 to 6 hours each week to complete the weekly web work homework, which was only 20 questions. Also, why the heck are there like 10 different convergence tests, and how are we supposed to memorize all of them? And the final exam really had like 5 questions related to probability, which was briefly covered in like 1 lecture and overpowered the power series questions that we spent much more time studying for. Anyways, I disliked Math 101 ever so slightly less than Math 100, so I'm gonna put it into C tier, which will probably be my grade for this course. And the last of the math courses for first year is Math 152, which is an introduction to linear systems and linear algebra. It's a lot of vectors, matrices, complex numbers, and conceptual math. My verdict on this course is the following. The concepts are interesting, but the exams made me want to burn the math building down. Let me explain. Unless you're from like Ontario or something, or had a special teacher that taught you this before, most people hadn't learned linear algebra yet. This makes the concepts very new and intriguing until you actually try to conceptualize it in the real world. Then you wonder what the heck a projection actually means. If it weren't for the exams, I think this course would have been in B tier. But no, because something called too many questions exists and the math department had no idea what that meant. For both midterms and the final exam, there were so many questions that were either not covered in the lecture, extremely difficult or tedious, or a combination of those. And there was nowhere near enough time to complete the exam from start to finish. At least the physics department gave us enough time to do the questions. The math department just stuck a middle finger up to us and just said, work faster. Especially after the final exam, everyone, and I mean everyone, was complaining about it afterwards, and I have yet to find someone who finished the exam and didn't write complete BS for any of the questions. F tier, no questions asked. I'm so glad I passed the course, and I really don't want to have to think about this course ever again. Alright, now come the physics courses, starting with Physics 157, which focuses on thermodynamics and waves. And also, this was probably one of my favorite courses that I took this year. The course itself is very well designed, even though there was a lot of stuff to complete, like reading quizzes, tutorial questions, math string physics problems, written homework problems, and weekly quizzes. It really did help to solidify our understanding of the concepts taught in class. And the lecture slides weren't cluttered at all. The formula sheet was actually readable. They gave us all of the previous exams from the last 12 years to study from, and the exam questions were actually somewhat similar to the homework problems. This course tries its best to set you up for success, so it's not a surprise that the class average for my section was 81%. Also, my professor Steve Durker was absolutely amazing, and the concepts themselves were actually quite enjoyable to learn, even though I had never seen thermodynamics before in physics. This was made even better by the multiple in-class demonstrations that were actually quite cool. I honestly don't have much to nitpick about Physics 157, and I feel like a bunch of other courses can learn from Physics 157 about good course design. Yes, I'm looking at you, Physics 158. So I think Physics 157 deserves its spot in S tier. Next is a course that y'all probably know very well if you've watched my Semester 2 vlog, and that is Physics 158. Whoo! Prepare for a lot of ranting about this course. Physics 158 is a course that focuses on waves, circuits, and electromagnetism. But let me tell you, it is nothing like Physics 157. The course content is way harder, the profs are mediocre at best, the formula sheet is unreadable, the lecture slides are garbage and don't prepare you for the homework doesn't prepare you for the exams, and the exams are worth 82% of your grade. Also, why the heck do they only give like 3 to 4 practice exams before the exam? Just give us like the last 5 to 10 years of exams to practice from. Now, this course would have been an F tier had I made this video like 2 weeks ago, but 2 things have happened since then. 1, I found out that I actually passed the course, which I was super ecstatic about. And 2, I discovered Electro Boom's YouTube videos, which definitely revived my interest in electrical engineering. So I know I may get a lot of hate for this, but I'm going to put Physics 158 into D tier. Up next is Physics 159, which is a 1-credit lab course where we applied some of the concepts from Physics 158. Some of the labs we did included measuring the tension in a string, measuring the capacitance of a capacitor without a multimeter, and measuring the ambient air pressure using a syringe and some weights. The main thing that you'll be submitting each week before your lab session ends is your lab report or your lab notebook, in which you detail the objective of the lab, the tools at your disposal, the quantities and formulas that you can relate and use, what you tested and tried to do, and your procedure of how to execute the lab. In Physics 159, it really doesn't matter at all if you manage to calculate a final value or not. The TAs are much more concerned about your procedure and your thinking process throughout the lab. Believe me, I've written many times in my lab report, this thing didn't work because of X, Y, Z, and I still managed to get some marks out of it. Overall, Physics 159 is quite an average course because while it was somewhat fun to play with the oscilloscope and the function generator, there were many times when we had absolutely no idea what the heck we were supposed to be doing, and there weren't enough TAs to help everyone. Also, 3 hours was never enough time to do everything, and everyone was always scrambling at the end to try to finish up our lab submissions. But I did somewhat well in that class, so I'm gonna put Physics 159 into B tier. And the last of the physics courses for first year is Physics 170, which is a course all about mechanics split into 2 parts, statics and dynamics. And I've got some mixed feelings about this course. On the positive side, my professor was pretty good and the lecture slides were actually readable. In our lectures, we would often go through practice problems step by step to apply the theoretical knowledge that was just taught, which really helped for the homework and the exams. And there is a wealth of practice problems in the textbook that really do help your understanding of the material, if you do them. You see, this course is designed so that 90% of your final grade comes from exams, a 30% midterm, and a 60% final. The other 10% is for homework and tutorial submissions. I definitely got quite complacent in this course and didn't actively practice doing the problems throughout the semester, and it basically meant that I ended up cramming for the exams. Granted, after doing a whole bunch of practice problems in preparation for the final exam, I did get a pretty good mark on my final. But for the midterm, let's just say that I didn't practice enough and I got a 50% on the dot for that midterm. So for those taking Physics 170 in future years, please don't be like me. Do the extra practice problems and the course will actually be somewhat enjoyable. But for those reasons, I think Physics 170 belongs in C tier. And last but certainly not least in terms of my grades is Words 150, which is the mandatory English credit that science and engineering students have to take. WRDS, which stands for Writing and Research in the Disciplines, is a course where you're exposed to the world of academic and scholarly writing. Say goodbye to all of the high school days of reading literature, and say hello to the UBC library database and APA citation. I will say that what you do in WRDS 150 heavily depends on your professor, as your course could either focus on the world of oil and fuel resources, or the dissemination of scientific knowledge, like what I did, or something completely up to what the professor wants to do. But some of the common things that we did included reading and analyzing various scholarly articles, learning about the formatting and language that is used in scholarly writing, and writing a final paper that is worth like 30 to 40% of your final grade. The course itself is pretty mid, honestly, but it was somehow my highest mark in the first semester. Because of that, I will put it into B tier. And those are all of my courses for my first year of UBC Engineering, scrunched up and compiled into one singular tier list. As mentioned in the video, I will soon be making individual videos for each of these courses detailing everything that you need to know before heading into your first year. Because I just want to be the person that I wish I had last year around this time. As always, gently tap the like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever I release a new video. With that being said, I hope this video brought you value or was just fun to watch, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.